Dying Earth is a weird world full of strange people and demons, cannibals, wizards, mutated monsters, and the desolation of the extremely far future where the sun may be extinguished at any moment. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I am your host, Liam, aka Himvar. Today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Michael Shea's A Quest for Simbilis. Quest for Simbilis is a picaresque 1974 novel that is a direct, authorized sequel to Jack Vance's The Eye of the Overworld, which I have reviewed previously. This means it is the third book in the Dying Earth, but A Quest for Simbilis is not written by Vance, but instead by Michael Shea. So I sort of consider it a 2.5 for the Dying Earth books. This was my first read by Shea and likely not my last. And while you could skip The Eyes of the Overworld, I don't feel like there's much point here, though there will certainly be some spoilers for that book. Our protagonist, the anti-hero Cugel the Clever, returns precisely where we left him at the end of The Eye of the Overworld. He wants revenge, yet again, on the laughing magician Iokonu, who he blames for his present predicament of being right back at square one. If you remember, in the last book, Cugel fumbled and transported himself to the beach he was sent to at the start of the previous book, making all of his dastardly foibles for naught. Besides just Cugel, we have another main character this time as well, Mumber's Soul, a local thing, leader of his village that is found in the kingdom of Sil, that was of import for some of the last book. Start of the book, he is deposed as Slay claims his village of Icthil as his own. This act goes against the preceding authority of the great arch-wizard Simbilis. The problem for Mumber's Soul is that Simbilis hasn't been seen in centuries. He seeks justice, but first, Cugel and him need to find Simbilis, if he's even alive, and if they do, will he even care? Just about Soul's only personality trait is honor and almost certainly believing that Simbilis is also honorable and will help him in his situation, and he also very much dislikes when anyone talks about Simbilis potentially being dead or not caring. Like previous Dying Earth books, this work is very imaginative and episodic. It's also weird, and it's full of funny encounters that make it a very fun adventure in this far future setting. Since Cugel is taking a different path this time, we get to see more interesting places. The city of Wall Dog, the Cannibal Fort, Millions Gather, and even the Underworld. Cugel himself is still portrayed just about the same, so bravo to Shea for that. He has a sharp tongue, he's a fearsome scoundrel. He's a nice contrast to the less arrogant but more honorable and a bit naive for the world he lives in, Mumber's Soul. And while Cugel was originally mostly by himself, the story is already different by having Mumber's Soul join the adventures. The party even gets more growth with a few members for parts of the story, even growing to the size of 4 for a time. And while it is episodic as Cugel bumbles from one thing to the next, the story did seem more cohesive. Because of that, I felt the lore of the Dying Earth seems more fathomable and solid, at least compared to the Eye of the Overworld. I suppose in Book 1, The Dying Earth, it felt this way too. There was a little bit of Deus Ex Machina, but for the most part everything seemed pretty random, and generally that randomness resulted in negative things for the characters, it seems. Negatives with positives, you just have to read it to find out. Also, since I recently read The Shadow of the Torturer and The Claw of the Conciliator and will continue The Book of the New Sun soon by Gene Wolfe, there were a few lines throughout this book that seemed particularly like inspiration for Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun, as I just mentioned. Though I'm not sure if he read it and if it is actually the case. It just seemed like pretty obvious inspiration a couple times when I read certain lines or paragraphs. The next book in the series, which I'm not sure if it will act as if this book exists or not, is Jack Vance's Cugel Saga from 1983, which I will be reading eventually. I'm not quite sure when yet. But let me know what you think of this review. As far as it goes, this book seems way less popular than the other Dying Earth books by Vance, so let me know if you've read it, and let me know if you're interested in reading it. So sort of read this as a prequel to Sword and Sorcery November, which is the month I'm focusing on Sword and Sorcery, of course, coming up. It is, of course, debatable whether this is considered Sword and Sorcery, but it kind of does overlap in some ways. Anyways, this has been Liam with Liam's Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.